Hi, in this video, I will explain final keyword in Java. In this tutorial, we will explore what the final keyword is, why it's important, and how to use it effectively in your Java programs. So let's get started. In Java, final is a keyword used to declare that something is unchangeable or immutable, and it can be applied to classes, methods, or variables. Let's start with final variables. Okay, to start with, let's create a new package, and let's call it as final variable. Inside this package, let's create a new class called final variable demo. Inside this class, let's have a main method. Now let's create a variable called num, and let's initialize with the value 10. Now let's try to print this. It's printing 10 as expected. Let's change this value to 20. Now this time it will print 20. Now, what if you don't want to change the value once you initialize it? How you can achieve and making it kind of a constant. So you can do this by using the final keyword. And here we go. The line number 6 started giving error and saying you cannot assign a value to a final variable num. Alright, let's comment this out. And now you understand what this final keyword is. It's making this num as a read-only type where you assigned a value once and you cannot reassign it. So here, this num is a local variable. You can also apply final keyword to the instance variable as well, or even a static variables. Let's take another example. We have a variable called static string, let's say company name, and let's have a value ABC Limited. All right, and let's mark it as final. Now you cannot change this value, of course, because we have marked this value as final. Let's try to change is equals to ABC. Now you will get the same error. Cannot assign the final variable to another value. All right, now what if I am not assigning the value while I'm initializing it? We are getting a compilation error and saying might not have been initialized. So there is two ways that you can initialize this variable. Sorry, since it's a static variable, we have to have initialize it inline. But if it is instance variable, you can initialize it in two ways. Let's check this out. You have a string name, and let's mark it as final. Now we haven't assigned any value, initial value. There is two ways to initialize this value, either inline like this, or you can also initialize through a constructor. Here we go. All right, so let's demonstrate this. Let's remove all this. We need to create a object of type final variable demo. And in the next line, let's have object.name. Let's try to change this value. Sorry, in this constructor, we haven't passed the value. Let's say j is the value. Now you cannot change this value because it's constant. You have initialized only once through the constructor and you cannot change it again. Okay, so this time let's take another example where the variable is of type reference. So till now we have seen the variables which is of primitive type or a string type. How about an array list? Let's take array list of integer and let's call it as my list and initialize with new array list. We need to import this list from the util and it all looks fine. Now let's put some values to this array. Let's add 5. Let's duplicate this line and add some more values, say 15, 20. What if I mark this variable final? What will happen? Will I get any compilation error on line number 16, 17 and 18? The answer is no. Let's see that. So even if I mark this variable myListFinal, it still doesn't give error because this reference variable is still referring to the same object and the objects has only changed, but the reference is still same. But if I try to change the reference of this myList, it will start complaining. Let's check this out. If I do myList is equals to new array list, it will give error. It says, gives almost the same type of error. Cannot assign a variable myList. So making a reference variable final only means reference cannot be changed, but you can add, remove or change object inside collections. Now let's look at final methods. For this, let's create a new package again. New package and call it as final method and create a new class called final method demo. And let's have the main method. Now let's understand what is final method. For this, let's create a new class. Let's call it as my service, and this class have some. Let's have a simple greet method which simply prints hello world. Now let's have a child class which implements this class. Class subclass extends my service. And let's try to override this method. So we have this method greet and we are overriding. This override is optional. So now we have hello world here and we change the implementation, and this time we are printing hello Java. Now what if you don't want the subclass to override this method? You want this implementation as final. To do this, Java gave the final keyword with methods. You simply put final keyword in front of the method declaration. And here we go, we start getting error at line number 12 and it says cannot override greet as the method is final. Okay, so now you understood what final keyword does with methods. It does not allow the child class method to override it, but you still can override other methods. Let's have another method and call it as greet2 and override it here. You can still do that. Alright, we already have methods. It still works fine. Now imagine you don't want the class itself to be inherited by the subclass. How you can achieve this? To achieve this, we can mark the class as final, and the class will not be allowed to be inherited by any child class. So the moment I mark this class as final, we start getting error at line number 13. And it's saying you cannot inherit from the final class. And here we go. Now you understood what final keyword does with the class. It does not allow the class to be inherited. Okay, let's have Another example of final class. This time let's have an abstract class. Abstract class, and let's call it as my abstract class. And let's have an abstract method called greet, which returns void. Now what if I mark this class as final? We get a compilation error at line number 3, and it says illegal combination of modifiers abstract and final. So a class cannot be both abstract and final. But why? The final says this class is complete and it cannot be inherited or extended by another class, while the abstract says the class is incomplete because we have a abstract method. We can have abstract methods, and it's incomplete. So a class cannot be both complete and incomplete, and that's why they are contradictory modifiers. So this is a very popular interview question as well in Java interview. Now let's talk about why use the final keyword. What is the benefits of using the final keyword? The first benefit is making something final. Like with variable, you create constants and it makes it as read-only, and same applies to methods and classes. Another benefit is security. It makes sure that when you are declaring a variable or a method or a class final, it makes it as read-only. And the third benefit is performance. The Java compiler can optimize the final variables and potentially improve the execution speed. Now let's talk about some best practices. So whenever you're creating a final variable, it is better to mark this variable name as the capital letter. So here, let's call it as company underscore name. And it's quite easy to identify the constants. Now let's recap what we have learned. As we covered, when applied to a variable, it signifies that the variable's value cannot be changed after it's being initialized. Next, when the final keyword is applied with a method, it indicates that the method cannot be overridden by subclass. And when applied to a class, it means that the class cannot be extended, essentially making it a sealed class. That's all about the final keyword in Java. Thank you for watching this tutorial and happy coding. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.